Hello everyone, welcome to the big picture. I am coming to you from my home in Lexington Park, Maryland. It's a long story, but I wasn't able to get out to Sotterley today, so I'm just doing it from home. I'm glad you're joining me today. During this program, you are welcome to comment. You are welcome to talk to each other. You are welcome to do any of that. So I hope I'm on. I'm not seeing too many people jumping on yet. Yeah, there you are. Hi, Angela. Now I know I'm not alone. Today I'm at home. I will change my view so you're looking at something better than my face the whole time. But you are welcome to comment and talk to each other. And I hope you're having a good week and looking forward to the weekend. It's a hot day here in St. Mary's County, sunny, but this is typical of this time of year. It is still pretty out. So we're going to talk today about revolution. And I really didn't specifically cover Sotterley during the revolution, so I thought I might talk about that today and some other concepts. If you need to leave or you missed something, this is you can go and see it at your leisure, so don't worry about that. So revolution. I wanted to pose a few questions to you. What does freedom mean to you? I think it's good to, we say words all the time, but sometimes we can forget their meaning, or we don't know, or someone might mean something different than we mean. So can you think about that a second and then maybe respond? What does freedom mean to you? I think that's a good to ask ourselves this time of year. Oh, and I wanted to say thank you for all veterans out there and your service, and we appreciate it. My husband is retired Army. Yes, I was an Army wife for 20 years, and now I'm a retired Army wife. I had that perspective also, but thank you so much. I know it's a sacrifice for the service person and their families, so we so appreciate it. We look forward to days like, holidays like the 4th of July to get together with family and friends, but it's good to remember those that allowed us to have these days. So thank you for your service, wherever you are. So did you come up with anything? What do you think? What does freedom mean to you? I asked my granddaughters, and it seems calm in my house right now, but really that's an illusion. It has always been total controlled chaos, because I've had my granddaughters here for their camp was canceled because of COVID, so they're having a camp at my house this week, and we've been having loads of fun, but you know how that is. So the ages range from 10 to 5 years old. So it's quiet now because my daughter came and took them for a walk for a little while. So that's why it's quiet now. But if we're not done before they get home, the quiet will end. Trust me. So what is freedom? I asked one of them what freedom meant, and of course, a lot of answers you get from children is things like, well, it means you can do whatever you want, right? And as in our American culture, we know that that is not really true. You can't do everything you want, because with freedom, as we know, comes responsibility. And and I think even our founders of the nation knew that it was a real experiment. It was walking a tightrope. Democracy or republic, as we have, is always teetering on collapse at any time, because it's messy, right? It's easier to have, somebody just telling you, believe it or not, it's easier just somebody telling you what to do, and what you should do. It's easier to live under, sometimes have rules, because when everybody has too much freedom, it means different things to different people, and sometimes people disagree, and it's just messy. It's just messy. Thinking of another biblical reference, the children of Israel, in the Ten Commandments, just give us some rules to follow, but that really, it really collapses after a while, because humans aren't like that. So all I'm trying to say is, I'm doing it very clumsily, but sometimes freedom is messy and it's hard. It's harder than we think it is sometimes. And we look at the TV or look out in our society now and know that our freedom is very messy. But it's worth it, isn't it? Freedom is worth it. It's worth the messiness. But it takes sacrifice, and it takes a lot of responsibility, as we know. So I hope that made some kind of sense. So let me get to a little bit about hope. So in this time in our country, and when we go through messy times in our history, sometimes we kind of lose hope. But I went to a racial equity institute workshop, and they said something that really hit home with me, and they talked about hope, and how the people that led civil rights movements and organizations early on, that was one of the things that they hung on to. They always had hope that it would get better. If you think it'll never get better all the time, you lose hope. But hope is not the same as optimism, right? Hope is not the same thing as optimism. And I thought that was a really good observation. Optimism means, it's going to be, everything's going to be great, right? But hope when you have hope, I'll quote them, okay? I'll quote the Racial Equity Institute. You have a sense, a deeper reality, sense of a deeper reality than what is visible, despite the brutal facts, okay? You have a deeper sense of reality than what is visible, despite the brutal facts. I thought that was so apropos right now. We can get, will this ever be okay? Will we ever get this right? And it makes some want to give up hope. And I'll encourage you not to give up hope, no matter what you're facing, and what the country is facing. We're not going to give up hope. It's not going to get better. This is going to get better, and we have to always have hope that we can make changes in our our republic and our democracy just keeps evolving toward a better place. Are we the same United States of America that we were just 50 years ago? No. Not even 2 years ago. I mean, constant evolution and constant change, and change that the couldn't even grasp at the time. The change that could happen, and change can be messy, right? Our veterans can attest to that. Change can be very messy, and there's a lot of sacrifice. So freedom is, as I try to explain to my granddaughters, freedom is not getting to all of a sudden to do whatever you want. That's more like anarchy, if you ask me. And sometimes they want to do anarchy, but it's having that sense that you're part of a bigger picture. You're part of a cog in the wheel that makes our country work and makes it better, and tries to fix what is wrong. So it's very messy. So I hope you think about that this weekend during 4th of July, whatever you're doing, whether you're outside or you can be with family, or you're still in your house or wherever you happen to be. Think about what freedom is. Is there a way to have freedom without being free to go somewhere? I think so. I think freedom is bigger than that. So you think about this is another example from REI, but you think about people who were in the Vietnamese prison camps for years and years and decades. They have to keep some kind of hope going on in order to survive, and I think that gives us resilience, and it gives us Anne Frank, one of her quotes in one of her pieces said, to think about things could be worse was stupid. She didn't like that. She said you have to keep hoping that you can, I'm paraphrasing, but keep hoping that you can make change and make things better. You don't, to encourage people, you don't tell them, well, it was worse back 2 years ago, or I had it worse, or when I grew up it was worse. That's not instilling hope. But that was she thought that was pessimistic, a way to approach problems, and she wrote down and thought all this when she was in a little apartment, afraid for her life, hiding with her family. So, and I think that's too during slavery, and the enslaved and their families, how there was always the hope, even though in their lifetimes maybe they didn't get to enjoy freedom, instilling that hope of something better or making it better. That's strength there. That's strength. That's where you get your strength, from that true hope. So those are the things that I wanted really to share with you today. I am going to talk about Sotterley a bit. Of course, Sotterley was, whenever I look at Sotterley and think about what all the place has seen, and doing a little thinking of Sotterley as an personification. What has Sotterley seen? It's like a story I read when I was a girl about a sequoia tree, and what has the sequoia tree experienced during its lifetime. kind of the same way sometimes I think about Sotterley. What has Sotterley seen? Wow. You know, of course, indigenous people, um, and and then European contact, and then you know, we interpret James Bowles and the first part of the house being built, the Middle Passage, and that went along for a long time, and then of course we all know George. There were five George Platers, and four of them lived at Sotterley. So George Plater III was the owner of the house during the Revolutionary War period. I think I said this before, but he was doing quite well. He had in commerce, and he had property, and he of course he marries well, and he was doing fine under British rule. And of course, to the side and becoming a patriot was not automatic. I mean, there was a lot of people, and this is something we don't cover a lot of time. There was a lot of people that had wanted nothing to do with that. I mean, even in George Plater and Rebecca Plater's own family, there were loyalists to the British. So it wasn't a given. I'm going to change my orientation so you don't have to look at my face all the time. I'm pointing it to my bird feeder here. There you go. Can you see that? That's my bird feeder. Sometimes I have friends that come by and visit me. So that's a little bit of my backyard. So hopefully that's good and you can still hear me. But you get tired of a talking head all the time. So George Plater was doing fine, and we forget sometimes that not all colonists in the original colonies wanted anything to do with rebelling from the British. There was a lot of persuasion, to put it mildly, going on to join the Patriot cause, but there's some people that never did. And they either and this is George Plater's own family, his son-in-law, one of his son-in-laws did not join the Patriot cause, but he adapted after the war was over. He adapted just fine, and he stayed here. But many didn't adapt, and they went either to England or other British colonies, and they did not stay. But so people, just like the Civil War, where families were split, that was the same way in the Revolution. Not everybody was on board with this. Why should we? We're doing fine. Why should we split with the British and go to war with the British? But keep in mind who's in power. Of course, we tout about taxation without representation, but really what it's about truly is, we want the freedom to make our own way and make our own money, especially those in power that already had money, without the British government telling us what to do. And we have to remember too, some generations have passed since the first British Europeans came to Maryland and came to our continent to settle in Jamestown and whatnot. So, there's my friend the Cardinal. Do you see him? Yes, very pretty. Yeah, very pretty. Do you see him? Yeah, so sometimes this is what I do, and I just want to, I like to bird watch all my pretty birds that come. So, very nice. So thank you for joining me, Mr. Cardinal. Yes. Um, on this, so the power thing. So George Plater believes that he's doing just fine. He, at the last minute, really just a few months before the Declaration of Independence, he joins the Patriot cause. And he becomes what he does during the Revolution is he's assigned to go around collecting goods and making sure he's part of the logistics. He's procuring goods. He's on the Council of Safety, trying to help support the war effort that way. Of course, he is part of not the original Continental Congress, but he's in the Continental Congress from 80 to 81, 1780 to 81. During the time that the Constitution and is being sent around, and trying to get a ratification going on. So he did serve with a couple of the famous founders. Of course, a contemporary with George Washington. Yes, he knew George Washington. Yes, he and his wife went to Mount Vernon, spent some time there. No evidence whatsoever that George Washington was at Sotterley. So none whatsoever. I don't know whether to think that's a good thing or a bad thing. What do you think? I don't know. But yes, they knew each other. They were contemporaries. They were almost the same age. Elizabeth Plater, his wife, her stepfather, William Fitzhugh, was very involved during the Revolution. And Sotterley itself, when you think about what the old girl witnessed, two raids during the Revolution. One raid resulted in the overseer being hanged and enslaved, going with the British. And then yet another time it was raided way late, even after the treaty was signed and the war was officially over, but they didn't get the word in time, so they're still raiding. So what happens to George and Elizabeth? Well, usually when there's any threat of danger, they're moving their family and some of their most valuable possessions elsewhere, not so vulnerable position. So he wasn't even home when all this went on. So he had taken his family to safety. So whenever there's threat of danger, and that happened in the War of 1812 too. So it was that I always say it's a miracle that Sotterley didn't get burned down to the ground with both wars with the British. I mean, it's a miracle, really. So I always think, so what is it here for now? What's the purpose? What do you think the purpose is? And that's something we have to reevaluate sometimes, isn't it? So why, of all the places, and during the colonial period and Revolutionary War period and up until the present day, why is Sotterley left? What are we supposed to do with that? It didn't become a museum officially until about 1960. So up until, it has as you know, it has a long, colorful story. So what is the purpose of it today? What do we think we should be doing with Sotterley today as the museum? What about freedom? How can the challenge for Sotterley is we were a site of slavery, right? Yet we're part of the British colonies, we're part of the state of Maryland, we're part of the United States. So really, Sotterley and its people saw it all. I always say Sotterley is a microcosm of American history, and I really believe that. Even though it's Sotterley people specific, the stories that it teaches and the basic truths that it teaches about human nature, about the struggles of America, about inequity, all of that. There's a story at Sotterley for that. People ask me, oh, can you cover this, this, and this? I go, no problem, because I can just walk around Sotterley and talk about it all, because it's there. So it is a valuable place, and it definitely needs to be preserved. Because the struggle is, and I know there's a lot of things going around about monuments and what to save, and that's a good discussion to have. And why, obvious why we have most of our monuments are white males, right? That's pretty obvious. But what, that's just a discussion that my good friend Joe McGill always has too. He calls it the slippery slope. Okay, if we start destroying all the monuments and all our things, is our history going to be erased? Don't we need to remember what our history was so we don't forget? There's always that. Of course, it's up to every individual community what they have up and what they have take down. It's situational. So, but we're having a little bit of what you would call a little slight revolution today, right? Over equity and racial tension, and it's messy. It's messy, messy, messy. And it's a hard lesson to learn, and unfortunately, the United States hasn't learned it well enough yet. So we have some more messiness to go through, right? We have some more soul searching to do. So I wanted to show you this. So this is a guide to slavery in Maryland, history and slavery in Maryland. This is a book that is published by the Maryland State Archives. Now, one caveat, the one that's online right now is the old one from 2007. There is a new version that just came out this year. And so all of Sotterley's stuff is updated in it. And it's a much better work, I believe, than it was before. But you cannot get that online, I don't think, now. It's on sale. The Maryland State Archives sells it. We also have copies at Sotterley if anybody is interested in one. Just let us know. And I think she was charging $10 for it. But it's a really good book. It's got a lot of primary documents and resources. But of course, when I got a chance, when they asked, does Sotterley want to do an update, I said, oh yes, we want to do a new update, because it had a lot of, from 2007 even. I mean, think about what all that's happened and Sotterley has gone through in interpretation just since 2007. It's kind of mind-boggling, really. I can't even believe it. So this is that book, open to the page, and of course you see it's got new pictures because that has the exhibit in it, right? You recognize that. And there's some old pictures, but that's still a pretty picture of the house. And it has a nice Nice picture on the inside too of, let me get it right. That's why I didn't join the Army myself. I don't have any spatial memory, or I can't, which way do I turn that? How do I make that into a box again? So yeah, so it has, there's our exhibit in there, right? So that's cool. And then they have some primary documents. So that's that's a copy of the actual document of slaves in St. Mary's County from, let me see what that's from. Oh, I see a typo in here. They said from William Briscoe of Sotterley. It wasn't William Briscoe. They've got the wrong Briscoe listed. That happens a lot. Sotterley is very confusing. And there's, that's a picture of Kane descendants when they visited in the 70s. I love that picture. I love that young girl in the front. And there's, of course, you know who, Miss Agnes. Have to have a picture of her in there, right? And here's another primary document that talks. This is a copy of the original, where from 1812, where John Rouse B. Plater tries to get reparations for lost property. So that's, you can see the names in there. See, Seeley. You can see all those cool names. I love that. I love when I find a name. It means so much. Corsi. The Seeleys and the Corsis of course went to Halifax, Nova Scotia. But that's just the Sotterley portion. So I was really happy to be part of that and to give us an update in this book. But get the new version, the 2020 version. The old version that's online for free was from 2007, and it's not really accurate anymore. So please get the newer version. Let us know if you would like a copy. We have some at the shop. Okay. And of course I have my old standby. This needs to be updated also. You write a book and right after that you say, oh, that's not correct or whatever. So that's the problem with publishing. Once it's out there, it's out there. You can't do anything about it. So I'm just bringing Sotterley to you. Let me see my spatial skills here. Okay, can you see that? Oh, there we go. So who is that? That's George Plater III. Right? Of course, artists have certain styles, and that's not exactly, this artist happens to do the eyes and nose exactly the same on everybody. But there he is, and that's Elizabeth. You can see their portraits in the house when it's open. Right? There's Elizabeth. So hi to Plater descendants if you're out there. I hope you're joining us. So I'm just going to read a little excerpt out of this. Find my glasses. Maybe some birds will come while I'm reading. We'll see. So born in 1735, George Plater III was likely tutored at home in his early years. In 1753, he attended the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. As others of his status and wealth at the college, he was accompanied by an enslaved manservant to see to his daily needs. In 1755, George Plater III, at just 19 years old, inherited Sotterley. At 21, he was elected warden of All Faith Parish. He was also appointed judge of St. Mary's County Court and elected as one of 4 delegates from St. Mary's County to the lower house of the Maryland Assembly the same year. He served as naval officer of the Patuxent and helped establish St. Andrew's Church, serving on the vestry. After the declaration of war with Britain, Plater III served on the Council of Safety, raising funds and materials to supply the patriot cause. Wealth and social standing not only meant living as a gentleman, it was also the path to power and responsibility in all social and governmental circles. So, the wealth and power, you automatically were on, you were a delegate here, there, everywhere, on the committee, on the vestry. And if you know about the vestry in the Anglican or Episcopalian faith, they're a committee that gets together, and and they're usually wealthy men, white men, right? And they're the ones that do the business of the church, like say somebody's son needs an apprenticeship somewhere. They might be responsible for helping him get that, that kind of work. They would be interested in people's attendance and their behavior and things like that. But they're more of they would be more of a who needs what and what can be done. But of course, this is all, they're interested in the affairs that they're interested in, right? There are some enslaved that were baptized at St. Andrew's Church, or confirmed at St. Andrew's Church and St. John's Catholic Church. So lots of records there. His wife, George Plater III's first wife. Did you know that George Plater had a first wife? So George Plater had a first wife that died. James Bowles had a first wife who died. And George Plater IV had a first wife who died. George Plater II, who married the widow Rebecca Tasker Addison Bowles. She was older when she passed away, but he still remarried and was only married a few years to, her last name was Carpenter, to that woman before he passed away. So yes, that's a theme in there. A lot of times we don't talk about these women, but they're there. So Hannah Lee, yes, she's part of the Lee family in Maryland. She died after 11 months of marriage, probably because she was weakened by childbirth. Not necessarily childbirth, but think about if you're in a weakened condition, you're susceptible to many diseases. Tuberculosis was a killer. Tuberculosis was the leading cause of death at the time, especially to anyone in an already weakened condition. James Bowles and 4 generations of Plater men all had first wives who died. Elizabeth Rousby was the second wife of Plater III. Elizabeth was the daughter of John Rousby and Anne Frisbee. The Rousby family was already allied with the Platers, and Elizabeth and George even shared a common grandmother. Now they weren't, they didn't have, one of these grandmothers was a step-grandmother. But yeah, that was very common for the elite class. You knew them for a long time. You knew their family. You might be a little related to them. That was very common. Because what are the reasons for that? We know? I bet you do. So they're all, Anne Burford Doyne Plater Rousby was one of the grandmother in question. Okay, Elizabeth's stepfather was William Fitzhugh. Not quite 14 when she married in 1764, Elizabeth was, by all accounts, at ease with the social obligations of a gentlewoman. She most likely learned from a tutor at home at Rousby Hall and from her mother. By 1774, Elizabeth had 5 surviving children: Rebecca, George IV, and John Rousby, Thomas, and Anne. She signed her personal correspondence Eliza, her preferred name among family and friends. She traveled with her husband to Annapolis and Philadelphia, and probably more than anyone else, helped to advance her husband's ambitions. She died in October 1789, not yet 40 years old. So she actually was a witness to the Revolution too, because during the time where George Plater III had to travel to Philadelphia and sometimes Annapolis, she went with him many times. So they had a place in Philadelphia for a while, and in Annapolis, and she would travel up with him a lot. So who's minding the children at home? Who's taking care of the home? You know. It was traveling, of course, was a different thing than what we do now. It took a way longer time to get anywhere. Traveling with your wife, I saw an interpretation of Martha Washington in Williamsburg once, and she said, yeah, it took George 3 days to get from Mount Vernon to Williamsburg when he was just riding himself, but when she went along with him. Of course, she had family in Williamsburg, of course, but it took a week. So, yeah, the more you take with you, the longer it takes, the more people you take, and the more stuff you take with you, and the more servants you take with you. So often when these wealthy people would travel, they would take servants, their closest servants with them to take care of business, and enslaved. They were enslaved, and they called them servants most of the time. But and then they would have quarters ready, somewhere for them guests to stay, and their servants. So she was a witness to all of this too. Unfortunately, we have some letters, but it doesn't talk about those kinds of things from Elizabeth. But she wasn't. We don't have an Abigail Adams that wrote down all this cool stuff about what's really going on and what she really thinks about. That's what I really love, but that's few and far between. A lot of the reason for that is because private letters, it was customary to burn your intimate letters, your private letters, because that was just what you did. You didn't want, this was private, and you didn't want this to, that's what Martha Washington did with all her private letters to her husband. You didn't want that to get out, so you would burn them. So unless you were Abigail Adams, who didn't do that, those kinds of stories are few and far between. So, but we're very fortunate to get any or find any. But the woman's point of view during the Revolution, would love to, but I don't have that. So, Revolution. So have you thought about my original question? If you're just joining us, I am at home, but I am coming to you live for Sotterley, of course, as always. And you're watching my bird feeder right now while I'm talking to you, so you don't have to see a talking head. Our first question when we started was, what does freedom mean to you? So I hope you think about that, and you come up with some kind of answer. And freedom, we talked about is a messy proposition. It always has been, and we keep evolving and changing as a nation. Um, but there's a price to be paid. There is personal sacrifice. Just the idea of our mask wearing, okay, just to use that as a what does that mean, mask wearing? So there are some people that they don't want to wear a mask, and even, you can't make them wear a mask, or unless you kick them out, right? And some people it's no problem. What does freedom mean? Does freedom mean, isn't it hard? I mean, it's hard. The idea of, I know it too, it's regionally and it's culturally, I know my folks and where they grew up in Missouri. People don't understand a lot of times this idea of the being so paranoid about the government telling you what to do. Where does that come from? But when I sat around listening to stories when I was little, and they would talk about, the game warden, right? So you think about these people who have lived in the Ozarks forever, right? And they hunt their own game, and, they drive their tractors, no big deal. Cars if they have them. I think somebody might have had an old Model T. I think my grandpa or my great-grandpa had an old Model T or something. But mainly it's still a horse and buggy or horse and wagon. And then all of a sudden, there's laws, and this came along, a lot of laws were passed during the Great Depression and the New Deal, right? A lot of regulation and a lot of changes. But you have these people who have been hunting their own game and basically living off the land for all these years, and all of a sudden now the state or to tell you have to buy a license to fish. You have to have a license to drive a car. So they're going, what? It's just a knee-jerk reaction. So I have lots of stories of, even, my parents, my friends of my parents, running from the game warden, trying to fish, and they don't have a license, so they just run, when the game warden comes by, right? So, that is ingrained, that is so ingrained in the culture of this idea of we don't want the government telling us what to do. And it's very ingrained. But you have to balance that with, remember, you're a cog in the wheel. And thinking about other people and knowing why things are. Why, if you get more people fishing and more people coming in and doing it, you have to start regulating it, right? Or pretty soon you won't have it, right? You won't have any left to fish. You won't have any. So a lot of it is, the regulations and things are for everyone's benefit, and that's where I think that the rub is sometimes. It's thinking about everyone, not just your situation. So it is messy, it is hard, freedom is hard, and it always will be. But remember, we maintain hope. I'll say that again, hope. Hope is not the same thing as optimism. Hope is a deeper sense of reality than what is visible despite the brutal facts, right? Despite the brutal facts. So if you're hopeful, you will, you're more likely, I think, you can see, people in our past, they could see in their head what it could be. They can see in their mind what it could be. And I think that I feel like that for my country, and I feel like that for Sotterley too. I can see in my mind how great it could be. Not only today, but I can see ahead in its future, whatever that holds. But I can see the possibilities, right? You can see the possibilities. So, Meredith, what do you mean by then we vote or not? Can you be specific? What do you mean? She has, we depend on the government to set regulations to protect us. Yes, we do. Then you said, then we vote or not. What do you mean by that? I'm not quite getting it. Can you elaborate a little bit? Do you mean we have a choice to vote or not, meaning we have a little bit of control over what regulations are passed or not? Is that what you mean? I'm just trying to make sure, right, what you mean by that. Meredith also says freedom for one aspect means being able to set my own goals. I like that. Yeah. I think a lot of our freedom today is based on having a more level playing field where the game's not rigged against you, right? You want the same set of rules, yes, and you want the same sort of opportunities, but it has to be a level playing field to start with. And I think that's where we're at right now, working on that level playing field for everyone. Everybody might not achieve the same things, but at least they had, if they have a level playing field, they have those opportunities and they can make their own choices that way. So really, that's basically what I had for today. I'll remind you, this book, we do have it at Sotterley. It's the new 2020 version of the Guide of the History of Slavery in Maryland. The one online is the old version. So to get the brand new copy, let us know. And I think she's, don't quote me, but I think she's charging $10 for those. And we can get it to you. Of course, the old reliable. And of course, Dave Brown wrote 2 books about Sotterley. Sotterley, People in Their Worlds. We have that at our shop also. And he wrote one specifically about George Plater. He's really the George Plater expert. So those are all available. We have all that still available. So go online at our, I think we have an online shop now. And just let us know on our website what you need. And we still have it. We still have a shop. So just wanted to remind you and hope you have a safe and happy and healthy 4th of July weekend. Stay safe, everybody, and I'll see you at Sotterley next week, okay? Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.